Okay, hello. Happy Monday. I'm sorry that I can't be here with you. I am moving into our new science center. Hooray! So hopefully you will be in there on Wednesday for your first anatomy classes, which is really exciting. So we are starting a new unit today. Your Unit 5 test is posted on Maxess, so you should be able to see your grade and check that out. So, this unit is all about our senses. So, we're going to be learning about our sensory receptors, and then we're going to look at the eye and vision, then the hearing, the ear and balance, and finally, we're going to talk about our chemical senses. So, couple of things to note. We do have 2 a.m. assembly schedules during this unit, so that does shorten our classes. We do have another dissection, which is going to be our cow eye dissection. Once again, we're going to try to do this as soon as possible when we arrive in the science center, but it really just depends on how quickly we can finish unpacking stuff. So you can notice on the first page of your packet that there's also 4 essential questions to this unit. Question number 1 is, how does my body detect and interpret stimuli from the world around me and within me? Number 2 is, why does the anatomy of my eyes let me see and perceive light? Number 3 is, why does the anatomy of my ears let me sense and perceive hearing and balance? And number 4 is, how do I smell and taste things? And we'll also talk about how taste and smell are connected, which is really interesting. So, big things to note. You have one quiz, and that's going to be Thursday, February 16th, and then your unit test will be February 28th. So, these were our essential questions. So, now I'd like for you to turn to page 4, 5, 4 and 5 of your student notebook, your guided notes. And we're going to take a couple of minutes to complete the I used to think, but now I know chart for vision, hearing, balance, taste, and smell. And these are considered special senses. And we'll talk about general versus special senses in lesson 1 today. So, what do you know about your vision? So, 2 things about that. What do you know about your hearing and how hearing happens, how it might be damaged? Balance, taste, smell. Okay, so pause the video here, complete that, and just the I used to think portion will complete the but now I know section at the end of our unit. Okay, so pause the video and complete that little bit, and then I will see you soon. So, you should have completed this I used to think, but now I know. And now we are on to our medical terminology, which is at the top of page 4 of your student notebook. So the root gloss means tongue. So hypoglossal means under the tongue. Ocule, remember, means eye or vision. So binoculars or the oculus rift. Ophthalm means eye or vision as well, like ophthalmology, which is the study of your eye and vision. Osm means smell, so osmic. And then auto means ear, so like otitis, which is an ear infection. And we'll learn about that when we talk about our ear and hearing. So now let's talk about lesson 1, which is all about our sensory receptors. So we've talked about feedback loops, neural pathways. Now we're going to specialize and talk about our sensory neural pathways. There are 3 parts of a sensory pathway, which at this point you should be pretty familiar with. The first one is the receptor. And remember, the receptor will detect the stimulus and initiate the impulse. Then we have the actual sensory nerve that is being targeted, and that will actually transmit the impulse to the central nervous system, which, remember, is the brain or the spinal cord. And then finally, the sensory nerve will trigger a specific brain region, which will perceive and integrate the stimulus, and then can decide on a response, which will send to the effector. But that's not the section that we're going to be focusing on in this unit. This unit is really receptor, sensory nerve, and brain region. So we have many different types of receptors. We know about our nerves, right? We looked at that in our last unit, and same thing about our brain regions and what they do. So now we're going to learn about our different types of sensory receptors so that we can really fill in all the pieces of this sensory pathway. So the first receptor is a photoreceptor, and photo means light, so it detects light. A chemoreceptor, chemo means chemicals, so it will detect chemicals. A nociceptor determines physical damage or injury. That is the receptor that tells you that you are feeling pain. A thermoreceptor, thermo, you guys know, means temperature, so that's what it detects. Mechanoreceptors and proprioceptors, students often confuse. So let's dive into these two different receptors and what they detect. So mechanoreceptors detects a deformity of the surrounding area due to force. So that's going to be things like vibrations or touch. Whereas proprioceptors, they will detect the position of body parts and changes in muscle length and tension, which equates to strength. So proprioceptors are the ones that give us a sense of movement, whereas mechanoreceptors feel vibrations and touch. Okay. So we were talking about at the beginning of this lesson that we have two different types of senses. We have general senses and special senses. So in this unit, when we're talking about our senses, we mean a lot more than just the five senses that you learned in middle and elementary school. We're now going to be looking at our types of receptors, and those receptors can give us more than five quote unquote senses. And we divide these senses into general senses, which are scattered, it's receptors that are scattered throughout your whole body. And then special senses, which are receptors that are concentrated into specialized organs that have specific functions. So the special senses is what you learn in elementary school. The general senses is what we're adding, the knowledge that we're adding to that. So the first general sense is nociceptors, which are everywhere except for the brain. Okay. And remember, your nociceptors are the ones that feel pain. So that's why you can have open brain surgery and people can be prodding you in the brain while you're still awake and you don't feel pain because the brain does not have any pain receptors. Thermoreceptors are mostly everywhere. You can detect temperature on most of your skin. Your heel is a little bit harder, but that's just because it's filled with so many calluses from walking. Your chemoreceptors, they detect chemical concentrations within the body. And so that's useful everywhere from your stomach to your esophagus for heartburn to your digestive tract. Mechanoreceptors will detect pressure, vibrations, and touch everywhere. So that's why you can feel like the ground vibrating when a large truck drives past you on the sidewalk. And then we have proprioceptors, which are in your muscles, your tendons, your joints. That's why stretches feel so good. And now we have our special senses. So vision, you know that vision is all about light and perception of light. So those are going to be our photoreceptors in our eye. Hearing is actually going to be specialized mechanoreceptors in our ear. So hearing is determined by a set of vibrations in your ear. So we'll look at that a little bit more in depth when we study hearing and balance. But yeah, hearing is all about vibrations in your ear. Balance, same thing, mechanoreceptors in your ear. Taste, those are going to be chemoreceptors on our tongue. You guys know that saliva is basically a chemical that helps to break down our food. So that's where your chemoreceptors come in. And then smell, that's going to also be chemoreceptors in the nose. Scents are basically just fancy molecules that have a smell to them. And so that is chemistry that is determining the chemical signature of these smells. So that's about it for our lesson. We do have two vocabulary words for lesson 1, and those are going to be general senses and special senses. So general senses are the senses perceived by receptors scattered throughout the whole body, whereas special senses are senses that have specialized organs dedicated to them. Okay, so you can pause the video here if you need to complete your vocabulary. And then once you are done completing these 2 vocabulary definitions, you are going to complete question set for lesson 1. You can use your notes, you can work with one another to solve these questions. And just be mindful that there are 4 exercises, so it's 2 pages long. So make sure you turn in both pages. The first page is, or exercise 1, is all about matching. You can reuse the same letter multiple times. And for one of them, there are 3 answers. For exercise 2, it's just a short answer. Same thing for exercise 3. And then exercise 4 is terminology, but based on what you've learned with your medical terminology. Please do not look up the definitions online. This is really great practice for our unit tests when we have those that section that's all about matching for vocabulary. Practicing a little bit like this at the beginning of every unit is very helpful. So that's about it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on Wednesday. Hopefully